Employment Allocation of Tips Act. This Act creates a new law for tips and is poised to revolutionize tipping procedures by ensuring equitable distribution of all tips, gratuities and service charges among staff, free from any deductions. The primary objective of the Act is to stop the prevailing practice observed in certain establishments of withholding all or a portion of tips processed through card payments, instead of transferring them in their entirety to the staff. The new law for tips is to include 1. A requirement for employers to pass on 100% of tips to staff with no deductions other than those required by the tax law. 2. A statutory code of practice on tipping, setting out the principles of fairness and transparency that employers must have regard to. Where a trunk system is in place, this will be viewed as compliant with the bill, provided this is being run as the bill intends. 3. Requirements for employers to have a written policy on tips. This is included in our restaurant employee handbook, which I'll reference at the end of this video. To distribute tips in a way that is fair, transparent and consistent, and to keep a record of how tips have been dealt with for 3 years from the date received. 4. A right for workers to request information relating to their employer's tipping record over a specific period during which they had worked for the employer within the last 3 years. 5. A requirement for tips that are distributed via a trunk to be paid no later than at the end of the month following the month in which they were paid by the customer. And 6. A right for agency workers to benefit from the Act in the same way as workers. So what does a fair system for distributing tips actually look like? The trunk system is a method for distributing tips and service charges among restaurant staff. By using a trunk system, restaurants can ensure the fair distribution of gratuities to employees, while ensuring that tax and national insurance contributions are handled correctly. Here's how it works. 1. Collection of tips. Customers leave tips or service charges either in cash or through card payments. These funds are collected and managed by the restaurant. 2. Creation of the trunk. The restaurant sets up a trunk, which is essentially a separate entity or fund dedicated to handling tips. This trunk is typically managed by a designated trunk master. 3. The trunk master. The role of the trunk master. The trunk master is responsible for overseeing the trunk, ensuring that tips are distributed fairly, and handling the tax and NI contributions. The trunk master can be a member of the restaurant staff or an external professional. 4. The actual allocation of tips. The trunk master calculates how tips should be distributed among eligible staff members. In many cases, this distribution is based on factors like hours worked, positions held, and customer feedback. If you need help implementing and calculating this, why not try out our Excel calculator for trunk/tip pool payment distribution to UK restaurant staff. 5. Tax and NI contributions. The trunk system helps ensure that tax and NI contributions are correctly managed. Tips distributed through the trunk are subject to income tax and national insurance, just like regular earnings. The trunk master is responsible for deducting these taxes and contributions before distributing the tips. Again, this can be complicated, so check with a tax professional before doing this bit. 6. Fair distribution. The trunk system is designed to promote fairness in the distribution of tips. It helps prevent issues like tips being withheld by the restaurant or management. The goal is to ensure that staff receive the gratuities they deserve. And 7. Transparency. The trunk system should be transparent with records kept to document the allocation and distribution of tips. This transparency helps prevent disputes and ensures that tax and NI obligations are met. Our Excel calculator for trunk/tip pool payment distribution to UK staff is designed to help you implement your trunk fairly and efficiently.